Okay, great. So after April 2020, I can dedicate some
Oh
time to
no,
that.
April 2020.
And so there it is. And in March, the world ends, basically. Everything closes down. And I had studied a little bit with a few friends in March and April, but
Can I ask you something about COVID? Because we had to. I definitely want to talk about it.
yeah, sure. Why don't we go ahead?
You did mention about COVID and like, man, like I feel like any podcast that talks about anything that happened in the past and doesn't mention COVID, like it's kind of doing a disservice because what everyone had to go through, and then not to mention chess players, what we had to go through, not being able to play any live tournaments, everything's slowing down, mental health is like dropping and stuff like that. But there's also like pauses too. So maybe you can explain like from a competitive perspective, because it's basically it was a significant delay. I don't know if there was like a 3 year delay. It was like maybe a year and a half delay from a chess perspective. Like how did it impact you, both the negatives and the positives?
Okay, so basically in 2020, I had effectively graduated. I had just needed to take one more course and I would have graduated, and I eventually did. And so COVID happened. I had already begun chess teaching before. That's how I was supplementing my income. That's how I was able to pay for university throughout.
Yeah.
And so I graduated with no loans. But
for anyone who's don't live in Canada, that's
that's an accomplishment. In Canada, that's not too big an accomplishment, but okay, in other places it is. But in any case, I had already had students, and I was teaching about 15 hours a week.
Yeah.
And so I was just ramping it up. Everyone was moving to online, and it was becoming incredibly easy to teach. Whereas before, I'll answer the competitive question in a moment, but when I was teaching before, I'd have to drive from one city to another. It'd be incredibly big delays.
Yeah.
You know, car crash suddenly on the road suddenly makes you lose 10 minutes or whatever. Whereas now I can teach from 6 to 7 next, 7:05 to 8:05 next.
Very
10, 9, very
efficient.
very efficient, very effective. And the thing is, I had started pre-planning a lot of course material, so it became much easier for me to teach. And as you said, very efficient, and that's what made me be able to pack more classes and be able to teach more.
Yeah.
On the chess side, I was trying to, like, I had just gotten the IM title. I didn't know what I wanted in terms of goals. And to be honest, I'm kind of the same now as back then.
Oh, so let me. That's interesting. So you got the IM title. You got recognized by your peers, subordinates. You know, people you look up to. Stuff. Your dad's giving you like the Hulk smash on the back. It's like and I know you're thinking like, hey, maybe the GM title like looks like it's within reach now. But are you saying that the fire kind of died down a little bit, or like what, like that? Why did it? And if it did, like, why did it die down at the peak of your? Like, you just 7.5 down now. You crushed like mercilessly. You had a point ahead of the whole turn. Well, maybe a point and a half.
No point ahead of the whole tournament.
Yeah. So
in fact, two people, Norm, me and another guy, he got 6.5. But no, look. When I was getting the IM title, it was very different from getting the FM title.
Yeah.
For getting the FM title, it was one tournament. I got it. And I also got an IM norm to go with that. So it showed me that, okay, it's possible to get the IM title just based off the performance I had. And the thing is, I had played not perfectly, and I was aware, forget about even analyzing with the engine. Yeah. I saw my games and I saw the mistakes I was making even while I was making moves. I was like, I made the move and I was like, I don't know if that's the best move. And I was very critical of myself. But yet, nonetheless, I got the IM norm. And so I thought, even with my suboptimal play, with the amount of mistakes I made, I still got the IM title. I had made some big mistakes against the GM where I could have probably saved it, and it wasn't the highest quality that I knew I was capable of.
Yeah.
So I knew that IM title was within reach. I had never gotten a GM norm on my path to IM ever, and on my path to IM, I had a lot of close calls. So the first feeling I felt when I got the IM title was relief.
Yes, yeah.
It was with FM. It was like a sense of accomplishment. With IM, it was relief because
like the weight is fine off your shoulder. You
it's hard to
got
explain.
That third note.
Yeah, it wasn't a sense of accomplishment with the IM as it was FM. It was just thank God it's over.
Yeah.
And obviously, maybe the next thought should be what's my next goal going to be in chess. I didn't necessarily have that because I was just like, thank God it's over. Thank God. The suitcase that I've been carrying around myself, that is this IM title that I've been so close to getting. Remember, but the IM title, the IM norms that I almost got were ones that also included travel. So I had to drive to Montreal, didn't get the norm, so I had to drive back for 5 hours.
So you were very self-conscious of all, not just the effort of just chess in general, which, like, for any of you guys who don't know how to play chess, even at a good level, you have to, like, you miss one move, you miscalculate anything, it is over. Like, the whole tournament in theory is over.
Yeah.
But you're thinking about, like, the logistics, like waking up at these times, like, you know, driving like 100 kilometers, 150 kilometers to get somewhere.
More.
All those things.
So, keep in mind, when I was doing Oakville, it's about 60, 70 kilometers away. And I'm driving 4 times, because I go there, then I go back home, take a nap,
right, you don't get,
and then I go there and I come back.
Yeah, you're not going to get a room or anything.
Yeah, I'm not getting room. And in between rounds, I'm not going to spend 4 hours in Oakville. Yeah. I'm sorry, Oakville. I don't know what there is to do for 4 hours. So I just go back, and it was a good time. Like, I would be able to reflect with my dad. My dad would be incredibly critical of my play.
Of course.
And I needed that because I don't need to have a high ego as I'm getting my time. And then I'll just take a nap. So I'd just be energized and ready to go. It's important to note that, as I said, the travel is something a lot of people don't consider. If the tournament was in my house, it'd be different. But no tournament is in my house. They're in Montreal. They're in Charlotte. And subsequently, I have played tournaments all over America and in the world. Yeah. It's a big time commitment. Whereas I could easily have spent that time with friends, with family, teaching, whatever I wanted. So it's a huge opportunity cost of playing because I'm spending a lot of money, and it's really a gamble. Because if I play poorly, then suddenly I'm psychologically torn down because I'm thinking about all these things, which is it worth the time? Is it worth the money?
Let me interject real quick on that, because you sound like pretty much like a self-adjusted like chess player from a competitive standpoint. Is that normal, like based on your peers, or are they kind of like, I will do everything, like they're not adjusted, they're just like thinking these very like creative, like imaginative things, but like getting there is a whole other story, because you're basically like, you're assessing everything and you're determining that, hey, you know what, like this better be worth it.
The thing is, people would, I don't want to say I'm the only one who has these thoughts, but keep in mind, I'm making the same mistake that I always do, which is like, for instance, in November, typically, I will predict that I'll be burnt out from working because I work a lot of hours.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, okay, why don't I take that time off, try to figure out where I can play. And Charlotte U.S. Masters would be convenient. They offer some conditions for an IM, so it seems like a good event. But I'm taking time off work, and I realize all this, but I still decide to go. And I think people that are in the same path as me had the same thoughts, because a lot of people that are IMs trying to get to GM, specifically in my age group, they're also teaching. And so they're also taking that sacrifice. And a lot of them are also realizing that it's not worth it.
So do you
because the cost-benefit analysis is just not in their favor.
Yeah.
Now, if I knew I was guaranteed to get the GM norm, it'd be a different story. But I'm playing in situations where I'm not guaranteed that by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, mathematically, I have less than 5% of getting it. So if in the 95% group that I'd be in most of the time, it's just not worth it, and it brings you down. Just to go back and to answer the COVID question, once I hit 24-35, I had taken a break. I studied a bit, but then I didn't really do much chess. I was playing online, but I wasn't really doing anything.
Yeah.
In December 2020, I decided to go to Charlotte, all masks, all that, and I had to come back, 2-week quarantine. It was before the whole tournament. There was a tournament.
Wow.
In America, they were a bit lighter with COVID. I had done, if I remember, okay. I think I got 4.5 or 5 out of 9, somewhere around the +1 or +0 mark. I lost 5 rating points, but it was fine. I was near my peak.
That sounds pretty. Like, that's good. That's usually a decent situation.
Yeah, because I'm at my peak rating. It's hard. I think I only lost 5 rating points.
Yeah.
And it was fine. Quarantine. I was back with my ex. It was completely fine. The 2021 comes in. My father and I decided to play a tournament in Latvia, and COVID there basically didn't exist. Nobody was wearing masks, even though it was peak maybe in other places.
Yeah, and that's normal.
That's normal. And funny enough, months later, Latvia had huge mask restrictions because COVID would.
Yeah, I think it just slowly and it just like wiped out their healthcare.
Yeah. So I played really poor. I lost like 25 rating points, and subsequently in Charlotte, I also lost 15. So I dipped under 2,400.
Yeah.
I played in Banff later that year, which I won, but I only gained maybe 6 or 7 points. So I went straight to exactly 2,400. Then Charlotte invited me to play in their IM Norm tournament. And again, this is around the time that I would have off. I think it's during March break or something, 2022. I had lost 35 rating points. I lost 5 games in a row to people lower rated than me. So the thing is, I wasn't studying much, and it was showing because I was playing against people that were during COVID. My chess wasn't there, and even though I only lost 35 points, I'm saying only. I should have lost even more. A lot of games I just got lucky.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, later on, that was going to be a question regarding, like, losses and wins.
Sure, we can get to that later.
But I figure, like, it's kind of a great point to bring it now because everybody, me included, we all have our upswings and downswings. Like, I know friends, I know me, who've dropped, like, I think I dropped, like, 96 points since last, like, 3 months or something like that. Like, I know there's people that are, like, trying to struggle, they can't win, etc. To me, like, basically you're telling me that this is normal for every level.
Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't lie to ourselves. You look at any single person on Earth, their rating graph is in a diagonal lineup all the time because at some point they're going to be facing rating adversity. They're going to be facing players that are better than them, even though they might be low rated. In my case, it was a mixture of laziness and just viewing tournaments as a vacation when it isn't. When you play,
we like to think it's a vacation. Then you go 0-3 and you're like, oh my god.
Exactly. No, you're absolutely right. When I'm playing, I need to be absolutely focused. But in every tournament I've played in recent memory, since COVID basically, I have always viewed it as vacation from work because I work all the time. Now I work 7 days a week basically.
Damn.
So it's any time I could just excuse myself for a few days to play in a chess tournament, I'm like, oh. I'm getting the time off.
Well, I'll see you in Newmarket.
Exactly.
I'll be there. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay, fantastic.
Well, I'm going to be, definitely, because I wanted to get back into. It's been a while because I've had sleep. I told you I had sleep apnea issues and it affected my chest. So to me, this will be the true test in January. Like, can I keep my concentration? Like, regardless if I win or lose, like just steady.
Sure.
So,
but yeah, no, I think look, rating losses happen, but the psychological view I've had of chess tournaments the last few years has been absolutely poor, and that's why I have lost I think 101 FIDE rating points. Why is it poor?
Why specifically for you it went down to poor?
Well, when people play, they don't have the same mindset as I do.
Yeah.
I don't study anymore. My drive is very low. Mm-hmm. Maybe that will change in time to come, but look, I got the IM title, and I was thinking, okay, I'll work hard. COVID comes, and it gives me an excuse to be lazy. Even though I'm playing throughout COVID, I'm losing rating. I think, apart from Banff, where I gained 6 or 7 rating points, considering the fact I won the tournament, I lost a lot of rating in every tournament I played in subsequently. 35 points lost in one Charlotte tournament, 15 lost in another Charlotte tournament, 20 lost in Latvia. Then I lost 15 in the subsequent Canadian zonals, which happened in 2021 or 2022. 2022, I lost a lot of rating there as well. I was losing to people just left and right for no reason.
So it sounds to me that part of this was definitely in terms of COVID to lower your drive. Because if your drive was still maintained, and again, there's a lot, like, we have to go with generalizations because, at the end of the day, we know that you're the only one that knows, like, all the thoughts and processes and, like, everything that's going through your head. But if we lose our drive, especially when we had it at a near peak high because, we just came off, like, a glorious run. Finally, the relief is out. We got the norm. We're very happy and stuff. If you're not maintaining that, you're automatically going to feel a little bit worse. And not to mention, you're not just affected, but everyone's being impacted. So every day you're hearing, like, the news, you're seeing signs of mass, you're getting a visual realization that, people are actually getting sick, and some people are, this is actually really impacting, and, there's death, like, unfortunately, like everywhere else. So does that outside stuff affect you from a chess perspective, or, like, even just generally?
So it's interesting. I went to university in part because I was interested in journalism. In fact, I graduated with a degree in it, amongst other things. And so I listen and follow to the news all the time. My grandmother lives near me. She lives very close to me, just a few kilometers away.
Yeah.
And obviously, I have to make sure that nothing happens to her. Funny enough, she didn't take COVID too seriously, but every time I'm around her, I do, because she's in her 80s. So I thought, okay, it's important to make sure she doesn't...
High risk.
Yeah, high risk. So I'm careful around her. But I hear so many bad things happening in the world all the time, especially with news happening now. And it's relevant all the time. News, by definition, is depressing. And so I've become quite numb to it because I've just heard it all. I've seen it all. Maybe that isn't the right approach, but it removes the psychological pressure that I have with following the news all the time. When I tell people, I kind of jokingly tell them that COVID was, in fact, quite a blessing for me because it paused university. It made exams super easy because everything's online. So doing exams online is way easier than in person. Teaching becomes so much simpler because I don't have to drive anywhere. And conversely, there's no tournament, so I'm not putting pressure on myself to get to a certain level. So for the first few months of COVID, I was doing incredibly well. I think for the first few months, I was very worried about what COVID had to bring to me. But when I realized that specifically people in my age category weren't, and specifically with my body type, I don't have any pre-existing conditions. I don't have diabetes, none of that. So I felt, okay, I was safe. I just want to make sure I'm around people that are safe as well. So I wasn't necessarily the most paranoid guy when it came to that. And I viewed it as a blessing as I could kind of upstart being an adult.
Do you think that overall with chess, COVID was actually kind of a net positive or a negative?
For me, it was definitely a net negative because it allowed people to study way more than they had before.
Oh, yeah, I never thought about that.
So the boost, so for instance, Chessable has been around, I believe, before COVID.
Yeah.
But a lot of these kids started buying these Chessable courses. And so what that entails is Chessable is good for openings, mid-games, and endgames, but the main focus is openings. famous GMs from Manish Giri, Magnus, Caruana, and everyone in between. Kasparov, I think, also has some courses there.
Yeah.
They would publish video courses for openings. And it's a losing battle because before, even when I was a kid, people had to get better by reading books and reading chess books. And the thing is, I had always viewed that as an advantage because I would always play suboptimal or dubious openings. Funny enough, I was taught by my father when I was a kid. We could get to that later. Yeah. But openings has always been my weak spot. And I never focused on it much. I'd always be losing out of the gate when I was playing, even when I was a kid. But it wasn't that bad before people could actually prep for it. Now people can prepare for all the games. All my games are online. Yeah. All my online games are there.
That's the thing. Everyone can have a meticulous plan for you, and if you don't have some sort of weird switcheroo or something, you could just fall into some prep that.
Exactly. The thing is, I now must play many different openings, so that's why people tell me they don't prepare for me. But the thing is, it doesn't matter if people don't prepare for me because all their knowledge is greater than what I know in those openings. So, and I'm not preparing. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But I'm playing against kids, who have studied immensely during COVID, and you can see these immense jumps. I know so many kids, both in Canada and America only, forget about what's happening in the rest of the world, that have taken big jumps, and it really is only in their openings. Yeah. The rest of their game isn't improving that much. Surely it has, but the big jump is in the openings. So now suddenly I'm fighting an even bigger uphill battle of just trying to equalize. It's going to be even greater now than before. And so it's another reason why it's pushed me back from trying to get GM. I'm realizing that, and people tell me this all the time, that getting GM now is harder than before. Relative, 5 years ago, I'm talking about. Of course, all the old heads are going to listen to this and point their finger, and they're going to be mathematically, no, but I disagree. Certainly there's been rating deflation. FIDE is now going to change the rules starting in 2020.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that later. But.
And so because of that, getting GM is now even harder. Now we could talk about pure anecdotal cases of people getting the GM title. from the youngest grandmaster in history to other people. But generally, getting GM is much harder now. It has to do with all the prep everyone has, and everyone sees this as the equalizer. But on the other hand, that means even Carlsen himself admits this. Getting a win in chess is much harder now for him. It's not surprising that he's lost rating.
Yeah.
And when people play in these open tournaments where you need to go +5, where you need to get 5 points above, 5 wins above 50%, it's very difficult because before you're playing a 2600, you could surprise them. Suddenly it's a position they don't know. Even if they're slightly better, it's tough waters. Whereas now the 2600 is aware of everything. They know all the sidelines. And it's really hard for that 2000 to beat them. And the problem with the 2600 now is they're facing the 2300s who are kids, or 2200s, who are actually much better. They're from India.
And they have less biases. Like, they just calculate the machines.
They calculate like machines. You can't prep for them because they barely have any games. And if they do, it's from when they were 1800s. So clearly they've completely revolutionized their opening repertoire. And all the advantages the 2600 had, apart from actually playing better than them, is slowly going out the window. So it becomes harder and harder for the 2600 to say and prove that they're the best player on the chessboard. Same thing for me. I play in Canada. Obviously, I'm from Toronto. And so every tournament I play in, I need to get way beyond 50%. So irregardless of who I play, I need to go for the win.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I was playing a person his name is Braden Laughlin. And I was with the white pieces, and I realized that this guy just had everything prepped. Everything.
Oh, that's the worst feeling.
And he had it was 90 plus 30, and after maybe 10, 15 moves, I had 45 minutes to his hour 35. And I was worse. And the whole game I was just trying to equalize. Soon he started making mistakes, and I started outplaying him, but there wasn't enough going on in the position where I could do anything. It was too late. And he and I had maybe a 400 or 500 point rating difference. And he later told me this is all chessable preparation. And it's part of the reason why it becomes really difficult. Now, obviously, if I had just played just some random move on move 1 against Braid, I was white. On move 1, I probably would have won. But now that just means I have to play incredibly strange openings just to really throw them off.
It's like you're playing computers. Yeah. It's like the days when Kasparov would play like E3 and just try and throw to you.
Yeah, and the thing is, I need to do that now. I played into some line that he knew, that I thought was a sideline, but he knew that sideline well. I'm in tough water. It's really difficult. I play one wrong move in a very tactical position. I go from slightly better to now much worse, and he knows how to respond to that because that's one of the lines covered. So it becomes much harder. So getting the GM is going to be difficult. I need to change my mindset. I need to not view chess tournaments as vacations anymore. I probably need to take some serious time off of work.
Business trips, man.
Yeah, business trip, whatever. I need to take some real time off work, whether that's 2-3 months. Just say, okay, I'm playing. Funny enough, I played in the transnational that happened in, I want to say June or July. Maybe it was June.
Yeah.
It happened in June. I played really well, but they had a blitz rapid and classical portion. I played really well in all of them. In the Swiss, in the classical, I finished with 5.5 out of 9, considering I was one of the lowest rated in the tournament. First round, I was playing someone higher rated than me. So I had finished with a 25-20 FIDE performance rating. Not GM norm, because GM norm you need 2600. And so I had done really well. I gained 20 points. I beat a young kid named Andy Woodward in the last round in a beautiful fashion. I didn't view that tournament as vacation. I viewed it as actually playing, and I had already had time off work. So I think, I don't want to make excuses for myself. I did lose 101 rating points because I played poorly. But for me to have any sniff of going back to where it even once was, I need to be a little bit more serious on my path. And I need to realize that, okay, the equalizer that everyone has, I need to buy into that. I need to get those courses. I need to completely change my openings, or I need to study a lot of openings on my own because I haven't done that at all.
That was a very fascinating point, because, and I'm not trying to like anticipate your answers, etc., but I've asked so many times, and not podcasts, but just like people in our community in chess, from like beginners to novices to like, competitive players at your level, or, semi-competitive at my level. And I would always ask them, like, was COVID like a positive or negative? And like, what was the negative and stuff? And no one has ever mentioned the fact that it's a net negative, because everyone's at home. They're either learning chess or growing chess, but they're actually, like, all the competitive ones are just like loading up on knowledge and knowledge and knowledge and knowledge. And now you're going against like people that are just calculating cleanly, and they have all this stuff like all these tree branches memorized, and then you pick the one here, like, oh no, I know this exact line, and then you're like, it's like you're playing stockfish, and it's tilting. Like it's at least for me, I felt that would be tilting.
No, that's exactly what it is. I realized before as I was getting to IM that I'm playing against people that are typically lower rated than me because I'm in Canada.
Yeah.
But there wasn't that equalizer. People weren't studying at home. Now when I talk to kids, plenty of them will tell me that they study for hours a day, hours, plural. And so I just, maybe I'll put in typically maybe 30 minutes a week to their hour.
Yeah,
that's tops. Like, I don't even know if I put in half an hour. That's absolute tops. This week I maybe put in 2-3 hours this week, but that's as much as I put in years.
You remind me of, I was watching a Joe Rogan podcast. I do you follow UFC?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so I used to I still kind of do, but I was a little bit more hardcore, and I would always follow Georges St-Pierre. Like, of course, he's Canadian. Like, we're all biased. Him, one of the best welterweights of all time. And I remember his coach. I don't know his name. I'm so bad I don't remember his name, but an amazing analytical person. He said that he would train people to make sure that you're only training at 70%. Never go to 100% intensity, because if you go at 70%, then you know that you'll still have enough for like the next day, the next day, the next day. While everyone is training at 100%, then they take a day break or 2-day breaks, maybe they hurt themselves. But if you keep training at 7 days or like 70%, and you're getting like 5 hours, by the end of the year, I've done 3 times, 4 times, 5 times more training or in this case studying than they have. So they're gonna crush you in like 1 year. It's kind of the same thing like chess, where if you got these people that they're just determined to put in 4 hours a day, and then 4 hours of study doesn't necessarily mean translate to actual chess. You still have to have the experience, the drill, and all that stuff. But you just do it repetitively, and then suddenly you have 100 more hours of chess studying than the next person that's at your similar rating. Like, you're gonna eat them like chump change like 4 out of 5 times most likely, just because of all the sharp knowledge. So it's kind of like it's the computer days. I